and welcome to another episode of Staying Power, everyone, a show that is all about building a better life. All the ways you think we mean that, we do mean that. And every week we do. And every week we come here to talk about just one of those ways we can build a better life. And we hope that it resonates with you and is something that you can apply in your own life. And by we, I mean myself, JDK Winnikin. And as always, I wouldn't know what to do without her anymore. My friend, my colleague, my co-host, co-producer, co-creator, Ashley Knievel. Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
You're good?
I'm good.
Good. Yeah, we have a really fun topic today.
We do.
That's going to tie into some of the fun you've been having recently.
Well, fun's one way of putting it.
Fun's one way of putting it. Yeah. So today's episode is actually for anyone who's ever made a perfect plan only to watch it burn down in real time. So if that's any of you out there listening or watching on our YouTube channel, then this will apply to you. And
they have something in common with me.
You have something in common with Ashley, which you're going to hear about in just a minute. And if you are watching on our YouTube channel right now or listening live on 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle, we're so happy to have you here. Also, though, if you end up missing any of this episode or our other episodes, you can catch this as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And in the show notes for every episode, you can find all the contact info you need to get in touch with Ashley or myself, stayingpowershow@gmail.com, as well as links to all of our social media feeds, our Patreon site where you can support our larger work, and soon there will be more. So all those different ways to find us. So Ashley, I'm glad you're laughing.
Yeah.
Because last people had heard from you, really, you were going on a vacation.
I was.
On a trip. And and something kind of went awry on this trip that you were planning, right?
Before we get there though, because I wanted to mention,
okay,
because our viewers can see this. You're wearing a really awesome t-shirt.
Oh, yeah. Let me put that out there. Yeah. Yeah.
Just show it to the camera.
Yeah, right.
But there's a story behind it. Where's it from?
Oh, the shirt, for those of you who are just listening and can't see this, it's a grayish black shirt with really bright orange writing on it. It says "Broke the Mouth" on it, and it is the slogan of the Crawl Space Gastropub restaurant in Mercer Island, Washington.
Yes.
And "Broke the Mouth" is a Hawaiian term when something is really tasty, when it is really good. And Crawl Space Gastropub in Mercer Island specializes in kind of a fusion Hawaiian Asian cuisine that is off the charts.
It's
good.
Delicious.
It is.
Hands down.
Absolutely prime stuff. And we are big fans of it, not just because the food is good and not just because it's close to Ashley's house. Not just because of that.
Might be a perk.
It's part of it. But this show has had some really big, important, successful moments in that restaurant. We have come up with show topics. We have expanded the Staying Power Network by signing new podcasts, signing contracts in there. We've gotten some of our best ideas for larger collaboration and building, right, the production side of all this in that place. And they are fun because you can they'll ask for your input on the food. They'll ask for your input on all the drinks. They make design drinks there.
It's a really cool space.
It's
and
really
the staff are just so friendly and so accommodating.
Yep.
And anyways, go check them out.
Actually, you should go check them out. And that's so I'm wearing their shirt today.
Yeah.
If you are in the Seattle area, you should go check it out. It's on Mercer Island. It's at the center of everything in this area. And if you visit from out of town, if you're listening to this from anywhere around the world, and we do have listeners around the world.
We do.
Then you should check it out when you're in town. And that is something we should point out. We hit a big milestone last week.
Yeah, we did.
We did. We now have listeners on every continent except for Antarctica.
Well,
as far as we know. Maybe there's somebody really cold there, really isolated listening to the show. But we now have listeners on every continent, which is exciting. So thank you to all of you listeners, wherever you are. Okay. So now, Ashley, we've made everybody wait long enough.
That's right. Now we can tell them. I'm sure they're on the edge of their seat.
So remember, today's topic is when things don't go according to plan. And Ashley, you were going on vacation and something didn't go to plan.
And I mean, it wasn't like everything just went kaput. But long story short, I was in Disneyland. And I haven't been back to Disneyland for some time. So I was really looking forward to this trip. I was going with some really special people. And as things just happened, like midday while in Disneyland, there was an accident that involved a little 5-year-old that I knew. And I got severely stabbed in my left eyeball.
By a 5-year-old?
Yeah. I mean, he helped unintentionally. Like I said, it was an accident. But holy bananas. That was the most painful
Laughing at
thing
your pain.
I have ever experienced. Would not recommend it for anybody. And it just, I mean, it was what it was. And I was really trying to tough through it. And then eventually I'm like, I don't know why I'm trying to be so tough about this. It sucks. It hurts. I literally cannot open my eye
Oh,
at all.
it was
And
bad.
so it was so bad. Like I had to go to the first aid thing and then I needed help getting back to my hotel room. And it was just a whole thing. I was out for the count the rest of the day,
Wow.
like laying flat in bed with curtains drawn.
Was it bleeding?
It was not bleeding. So for those of you asking, it like was a abrasion on, I don't know what it's called, but the white part of your eye. So
Okay.
it's like my eyesight's fine. But I couldn't like open it for the rest of that day and most of the following day. So I
it
had
gets
plans to go
reactive too, right?
to Universal. That didn't happen. But yes, it was like it was awful and so painful and
So
really
you missed out on Harry
frustrating.
Potter World.
I missed out on Harry Potter World.
Oh,
It's very sad.
mm.
I did get to eat some churros on the bright side.
Well,
I
hopefully you
They
got
were
more.
delicious. I
Hopefully you
kept
got
it to one a day,
one a day. I know.
but they were good. So anyways, not what I intended to experience going to Disneyland, right? The happiest place on earth. And it was for the first day and a half, and then it wasn't. And it just was what it was. But it was a little mix of emotions because I had really been looking forward to this trip and I had extra plans of what I wanted to do. And I wanted to go to, downtown Disney and do some shopping that night and get JD a gift. And that didn't happen because I couldn't see anything. So sorry.
Okay.
And so I had plans and unfortunately they just capsized and off they went.
Well, yeah. Well, don't worry about a gift. Just having you here every week is a gift.
Thanks.
There we go. All right. So that must have been tough in the moment. Like, did you know pretty quickly this was going to change your plans?
Yeah, when I finally succumbed to how difficult it actually was, I really foresaw like the rest of my trip just being nothing that I had originally planned on doing.
And so how was that landing, at least initially? Was it tough?
It was really difficult because obviously I have this 5-year-old and he feels so bad. He's a sweet kid.
Poor guy.
Totally, he kept coming up and giving me hugs and like asking if I was okay. I'm like, poor thing. But at the same time, I'm like trying to hold it together so he doesn't see that I'm like falling apart because I didn't want him to feel worse. Like he already felt bad. I'm like, what he knows happened is enough for his little mind to hold. But on the backside of that, I'm like, I
can't see.
I feel so debilitated.
Yeah, that must have been freaky.
Like, talk about being blind, both eyes completely shut in the middle of downtown, like Disney and rides and crowds and stuff. It was just not comfortable. And then like, I'm like, okay, just, tough it out. I'm like, why am I trying to tough this out? That was one story that kept coming up. It's like, why am I just trying to be tough about this?
Or the story that you needed to be tough.
Maybe. And maybe I was like, am I doing this so I'm not really accepting the reality? Like, I just think if I can just tough this out, it'll just get better. And then, vacation can go on. Or is this like, I don't want to accept the reality of like, okay, fun's over.
Oh, how long did it take you to get from that initial, like, this is bad, this wasn't good, to this is changing my plans? How quickly did that take?
I mean, the realization was pretty quick.
Yeah.
But the acceptance of that realization, I mean, I'm a grown up and I was like, it is what it is. So I could either have a pity party or I could just accept it and move on. And I did choose to do that. It took a little bit of time. I mean, I would say like an hour.
An hour?
And then I was like, all right, well, now what?
Okay. So in that hour, what were you doing? Were you feeling sorry for yourself? Were you catastrophizing? Were you putting yourself in the hospital? Were you canceling your plans to go to
I was in a first
Universal?
aid unit.
Okay.
Getting it checked out. And then
which Disney character was working on you?
At that point I couldn't see to tell you.
So it could have been Goofy, could have been Dumbo.
Wow.
Could have been Jack Sparrow. Anyway, sorry. I'm having too much fun with this.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
No, I think it was a park official that was helping me out. But anyways, I think, let's see, they were helping me out. And then I remember being taken back to my room. And I mean, that was it. It was done. So it was frustrating. Honestly, I was very calm about the fact that plans were done. Like everything that was set to be what we were going to do and where we were going to go and everything, just that was over. The following day, I was upset we didn't get to go to Universal. I was actually more upset because we literally had just bought those tickets like 2 days ago.
Oh.
I was like, of course. But I was upset about that. But at the same time, I'm like, but so what? Oh, well.
Mhm.
Like, getting really upset isn't gonna help because I am already in a lot of pain, and I'm trying not to cry because that's even more painful, even though that's the only thing
Mhm.
I wanna do right now.
Right.
But to be honest, I do think some of the pain was so debilitating that it kind of overtook any other emotion that I could have been feeling at
Sure.
that point in time.
Sure. Well, it
But
sounds like your own coaching experience will help with that too, recognizing
it did.
there's reality.
It did, yes. I think so, actually, 'cause
Yeah.
I can understand, like, why someone in that circumstance would be so upset and just, be pouting the rest of the weekend and whatnot, but I'm like, "What is that going to do?
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
like, is that gonna make me feel better? No, it's not. So what can we do to make the experience great?"
So what did you do?
I was waited on hand and foot.
Hey, for how long?
Like a day and a half.
Hey, that's not bad.
I know, I was like, "Feed me, can't open my eyes." So, it was really bad at one point, like, I actually could not open my eyes to, like, feed myself.
Mhm.
But then at one point, like, at the hotel, everyone was gone, and so we were just hanging out there waiting for me to heal up, and we're like, "Well, I can kinda sorta open it, so maybe we go down and try, like, the pool area and the hot tub," and no
Mhm.
one was there because it was midday. So this is, like, the next day, like, after I had
Right.
just laid in the dark for, like, 24 hours. Um, so I
Man,
got to do that, so that was cool, you know,
man.
made the most.
Did it help that you knew you have another vacation coming up?
You know, it did
It's good.
to an extent, but they were different kinds of trips.
Right.
So I'm
Right, they
like,
are.
I can't relive this one right now. I
Not
have to
right
later.
now.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, it's not like I flew out to some like other country and it was like a big extravagant. This was in California. So it's
Sure.
close to where I live. I can
Right.
fly 2 states away and go down there again.
Right.
We
And
can do
most
it.
importantly,
We
you
can have
can
a do
see.
over.
You can see okay.
And I can see. I did have a moment the other morning where things were really fuzzy and I was trying to read my computer and I'm like, I've never had this be so blurry. And then I'm
Mm,
like, "Oh, yeah, you had an iron injury."
yeah,
And then I'm, like, waiting. It took, like, 2.5 hours, and it finally, like, the blur went away.
it's weird.
It's, like, very odd. I have not had it since then. I do intend to have my eye checked out. I'm just in town for a very short period of time before I am leaving again. So when I do come back, for the listeners and viewers who are worried and wondering, I
Yes.
am gonna get it checked out.
Okay,
Just
good.
so you know.
Good. Well, so far so good because there hasn't been doesn't you wouldn't know looking at you
Oh,
here.
good.
You wouldn't know.
It's been off and on, like, leaking and itchy, and so I'm assuming it's healing, but
Gotcha. Okay. Well, wow. I'm sorry about that. It was a little alarming when you reached out to me and said, "Hey, by the way," because I hadn't heard from you for a couple days, which was okay. You were on vacation,
yeah.
right? Not a big deal.
He
Oh, she
has to
must
hear
be
from
having
me
a great
every
time.
day.
You should- no,
Separation
I'm
issues.
just used to hearing it
Yes,
from
yes,
you.
you
And
are,
so I was
yeah.
like, "Oh, she's on vacation, no problem." And then you texted me, "Yeah, by the way, I'll respond as soon as I can read
Oh my gosh, it
because
was, like, the
I
worst text to send. It was so, like, cold and generic. I'm like, "Hi,
I had
I
an
can't
accident
read
with
your
my
message.
eye."
I had an accident with my eye. I'll message you when I can read again."
So talk about the stories on my end, like, "Whoa, what happened? Are you" I mean, I had visions of you, like, coming back with an eye patch or having to
I
go get
should have.
surgery or, like, you weren't gonna be able to fly back because the
Get a
pressure in the
glass eye.
plane. Yeah, there were
Yeah,
so many places we could have gone. So, although if you'd gotten an eye patch at Disneyland, you could go on Pirates of the Caribbean, blend right in.
I know, right?
Okay, anyway, I've played that one out. Alright, so, whew, that's a rough story, but okay, but when we come back from the break, let's dig into why these things throw us off when they throw them off. It sounds like you handled yours pretty well
Oh,
overall,
thanks.
and so that's good. But none of us like it when the plans we made, particularly the things we're looking forward to the most, when something goes wrong and we see them literally, no pun intended in your case, or don't see them in your case, see them just light on fire, right, and disappear in front of us. What to do with that and how to respond to that is what we're going to talk about today on Staying Power. So come back here in just a minute. We'll continue the conversation. See you in a minute.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diaspora, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diaspora offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diaspora Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
We see the urgent threat of climate change every day. Tornadoes in Texas, droughts in Europe, typhoons in the Philippines. But what don't we see? How the climate crisis hits vulnerable people the hardest, women and girls. That's why CARE helps the world's most marginalized people build resiliency and fight for a more just and sustainable world. You can help. Learn more at care.org/climate.
Giving local voices a chance to shine. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
Talking about when plans go wrong, when things don't go as planned, how do we respond to them? And what are maybe some ways that we can better respond to them? See that tie in, building a better life, better respond.
You're so smart.
I know. I like to connect the dots sometimes. Nevertheless. Okay. So before the break, Ashley, you were telling us that story, which I'm so glad it's worked out, by the way. I'm glad you're okay. And I'm glad that the disappointment and the adjustment to the new reality didn't take you like 3 days to do, right? No. Mostly that's good. But it can, right? Depending on who we are, what our experiences are, how we've grown up, how we view the world. There's a lot of different factors involved in how we understand and react to things or respond to things when things don't go to plan. But if you think about it, not a lot always goes to plan.
You're not wrong.
Right. Now, in your case, this was a specific plan, right? That went wrong. So, but a lot of plans, like our plans going into the day at work, very rarely go the way we expect, right? Or the way we want them to.
The only plan for work is just to get to the end of the day sometimes.
Right. The things that we do in our social lives, right? You go on a date with someone for the first time. You might have a certain hope it goes a certain way and it doesn't go another way. Am I speaking from experience? Yes, of course I'm experienced. But I've also had it go unexpectedly the other way, be unexpectedly better.
Really?
Yeah. So
congrats.
sometimes plans don't go to plan, and that can sometimes go the other direction. It can actually be positive, right? So, but for what we're talking about, it's worth, I think, talking a little bit about how the body deals with this. And both fortunately and unfortunately, we have a brain that is both ready for this kind of thing. And it's a brain also that can give us messages that we can misinterpret about things like this, right? So there's I guess we could call it the brain's catastrophe complex, right? The brain, this does happen, and neuroscientists talk about this all the time. The brain, the way our brain responds to uncertainty, we can sometimes frame that as danger.
Oh, yes.
Right? That something that is uncertain, therefore, because it's uncertain, is dangerous. The very nature of its uncertainty means risk, means we can't anticipate something, all that stuff. So there are a lot of different ways to look at this, right? And I'm wondering if any of these you did or you were aware of when you went through your experience. I don't even know what to call it. I'm trying to come up with something.
Experience is fine.
Experience is fine. Okay. So, now you and I in our coaching, we talk about ventral vagal theory all the time, right? That's the idea that instead of fight, flight, or freeze, we have actually a part in our central nervous system that we can tap into that's more of a flow state, right? And Dr. Stephen Porges was the one who really developed this theory. And there's lots of different discussions about it, and there's varying degrees of debate and agreement, disagreement about it. But more or less, what happens is when we connect with that flow state through breathing, usually different breathing techniques, we can better connect with ourselves, connect with people around us, regulate our emotions, things like that. And so what that does is we can connect into that. We then perceive and feel safety, and that turns off that message that uncertainty is scary. And we start to experience that even though something might be uncertain, that doesn't mean it's dangerous.
Right.
So there's that distinction. So it allows for us to be even calm when we're under stress. So now, did you do any breathing? Did you think of your ventral vagal stuff when you were?
I didn't sit there and name it.
Oh, you didn't name it?
But
okay.
I breathing 1000%. Just because of like you said, getting into a flow state is essentially where I got to where I could also let go of any attachment to the disappointment of not being able to continue my plans on this vacation. The breathing, intentionally, unintentionally, but because of where the abrasion happened on my eye, it was painful and I wanted to cry. That was like my knee-jerk reaction was just to sob because
Yeah,
it
sure.
hurt so bad
Oh,
and it
yeah.
was so debilitating and overwhelming. And like to the point that I couldn't even stand up. Like I was down on the ground in the fetal position. Like this was so bad. But then crying, coincidentally, is really painful when you have an eye injury.
Mhm.
So then I'm trying not to do that. And then it hurts more because I'm holding back. And so I'm just focused on my breathing, just in and out, trying to calm myself down,
Mhm.
just allow the pain to be the overwhelming sensation that it is and to let it pass.
Yeah.
And honestly, with the kind of eye injury I had, there really is nothing to do besides like ibuprofen and an ice pack and
Right.
just let it do its thing. So I really had to just let things flow
Really
and
had to practice.
just really, yes. But
Yeah.
it was really fascinating to see how naturally that came up. Now,
Yeah.
because I am a coach, that could be part of it too, but it was such a huge help
Good.
to calm me down and to keep me like really centered and like determined of like, okay, I'm in this place. I can't be here forever. I do need to get out of Disneyland Park. I do need to get back to my hotel. I need to get myself situated so then I can just focus on healing.
Mhm. Right.
But yeah, it
Well,
was helpful.
and the cool thing about it too is even though maybe my description of it seemed a little more complex and detailed, when it comes to breathing, it's not that difficult. In fact, the longer the exhale they found,
Mhm.
the longer the exhale, the more you can connect with that flow state. You know, it
Yeah.
kind of activates the vagus nerve and kind of pulls down the sympathetic response of just fight or flight. Right. So simple ways like 4-7-8 breathing is the one everybody hears about, right? Inhale through your nose to a count of 4, hold at a count of 7, exhale to a count of 8, or if you can go further. I mean, that's an easy one to do. And yeah, you can do that at any point. You can do that when you're in traffic and traffic is irritating you. If you're in the middle of a phone conversation that is, you know, irritating with a coworker or with significant other or a family member or whatever, you can do those as well. The other thing, I'm wondering if you did this too, is something that researchers call cognitive reappraisal. In the journal Emotion back in 2022, they talked about and showed in a study that labeling emotions and reframing the story you're telling about them
Mhm.
increases your resilience, your emotional resilience, and reduces the impulsive reactions, which usually include fight or flight
Right.
and catastrophizing something, worst possible scenario. So, like the story you're telling yourself matters. So, like if something like say something doesn't go well at work, and instead of just like, okay, that project I worked on didn't go where I wanted it to go, that's reality. If
Mhm.
the story then is because of that, I'm a failure, that's the story you can reframe.
Right.
Right? Because it doesn't mean that
Right.
necessarily unless you
Mhm.
tell yourself that. And of course, as we know, if you believe all these stories, you can start making self-fulfilling prophecies after a while. So, did you have any of that? Did you like recognize you were telling yourself any stories about what had happened and then you had to swap them out?
Mm, I don't think I had any stories, to be honest, just because it was such a mere accident,
Okay.
and it maybe just because I've had enough practice and I'm pretty sound in my logic of that. My logic brain is pretty present where I'm like, "It was what it was."
Okay. So you didn't have like a why me
No,
moment. A lot of people can have that,
no.
which is a huge story, right?
Yeah.
Why me? Because it implies like there must be some reason, like I've been targeted or the
Mhm.
universe is out to get me or God's punishing me or something like that.
Yeah,
Okay, so you didn't have any of
yeah.
that.
I mean, no, I guess I told myself a good story that I'm like, "This is an injury, but it's not a" and I didn't actually know the answer because I was just telling myself this to make myself feel better, but I'm like, "It is going to heal. It is not going to deter my sight or my abilities at all. Like,
Mhm.
I will be okay
Okay.
at the once it's all healed up and fine." I did not know that, to be honest. It's not like I
Mhm.
had been checked out and they're like, "Oh, yeah, your eyes are free and clear and whatever." I had no idea. But I'm like, hyping this up of like, "Well, what if this happens? What if that happens?" is not gonna help me. It's
No.
gonna get me more worked up. And, like, I can't predict this outcome, but I can handle how I react to it, and that is where my strength is gonna lie if I take care of myself and not make stories.
Okay, because you know what you just did there. It's what the researcher C.R. Snyder calls the hope theory.
Mhm.
The hope theory.
Yeah.
Right. Which means recognizing your agency, you can choose how you want to frame this and respond to it, and then creating the pathway on the basis of that. And it's a little, I suppose you could call it a story to a certain degree, but you
Sure.
put that out there. Look, this is temporary.
Mhm.
This is not going to last. It's not going to, it's not going to debilitate me. You also could have said, I suppose, however this turns out, I'm going to make it work.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be more hope theory, right? Because then that provides motivation.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been really easy to be like, oh man, my left eye is not working right now. What if it doesn't work ever again? Am I not gonna be able to see? Can I not drive anymore? Like, because you need two eyes for that. Like, the stories could have flown so far. And I'm like, why would I do that? Because if they're not true, that's so much time I spent being anxious and worried and whatever for what. So let's just focus on what I do know I need to do, which is take care of myself and heal.
Right. And so you reframe that. And I think what always stands out to people when they first hear about this for the first time, and maybe if some of you listening are hearing this for the first time, this idea of reframing might sound really new, like, because we tend to believe whatever our first emotion tells us is happening.
Yep.
Right. Or at least that's the baseline. And then, but when we have that emotional response, we can either cognitively respond to that by following that line of catastrophe, right? Where uncertainty becomes dangerous. Or we can end up having a whole series of conversations with ourselves of what ifs, right? All over the place. And we think those are the only way to really respond to this, right? So with the breathing part, with the ventral vagal nerve, and then this cognitive reframing, we bring together both the seminal or the body oriented parts of this and the brain. It brings together both. And so that's why I was interested, not only in sharing those with people, but seeing if those were things that happened for you. And it sounds like it did.
A little bit.
Yeah. So, okay. So with that in mind, those are all things for listeners out there that you can tap into rather easily. And we'll provide resources for you for the show notes. So, but that's the interesting thing. When you went down there, you had an expectation
Yes.
that you were going to do all these things, which is totally how it should be, right? It wouldn't have been good for you to go down and go, we're supposed to go to Universal and Disneyland, and I'm planning for it to be fun, but something could
Never
go
know.
wrong.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Are you a person who's ever done that? Do you like hedge your bets before? Like, do you not let yourself get excited about stuff?
No.
Yeah, you don't strike me as one.
No.
So
I mean, like, I'm not one of those, like, was it hope for the best, plan for the worst? I don't understand that. I mean, I certainly hope for the best, and I'm ready and excited to dive into the best of what it's going to be. I understand there's certain circumstances where you never know what's going to happen, and I understand those, but I'm never like hesitant to fully enjoy something because of what if.
right, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wear both shoes. I don't know.
You wear both shoes, both shoes or no shoes, one of the two. Well, and as I said, kind of as a throwaway comment a minute ago, that why do we expect things always to go to plan when, if we really stop and think about it, oftentimes they don't, right? Or even if something goes forward, we don't experience it the way that we expect it to, or perhaps the way we hope to, or perhaps the way we feared to, right? It tends to be different. And so if we make these plans, why are we shocked? It's ironic. We make these plans. We know that they don't often go the way we expect them to, for good or for bad. So why are we shocked when they don't go to plan? I'm not saying you need to answer that.
Sure.
I'm just wondering.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question because it's like I feel like there's a lot of plans, intentions, however you want to word that. That can be applied for really grandiose things like trips and vacations and, making grand moves, whether it be in like a job or location, whatnot, or even to the simplest things of like, I'm going to sit down in this chair and I'm going to plan that it's going to hold me and not break. Or I'm going to go out to my car and I'm going to turn it and it's going to start and we're going to go off to work or wherever we're going and it's going to be fine.
Right.
And these are unintentional. No one thinks about a chair before they sit down in it.
Right.
They don't think like, is this going to break?
Right.
No. At least I don't think so.
Short of a real obvious problem.
Or short of something like otherwise, it's like you don't even consider the thought because you've already intended like this is going to work out for me.
Right.
So I feel like there's the side of it where it's like really intentional. You made these big plans or whatever. And I think because there's a risk to it,
Mm-hmm.
that is where people can get really shocked and disappointed because they're like, well, why should that have happened? Why couldn't it have just gone the way I wanted it to?
Right.
And
Right.
you can chop it up, well, that's life,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes that is life. Sometimes it's something you did wrong to mess things up. Maybe you booked your flight the wrong time and then you missed the boat for your cruise or whatever, and there goes that. Or it could be like you were driving to the airport to take a flight to get on your cruise and you got in a really bad car accident because somebody else ran a red light. Now you're in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Not your plans at all.
Right.
The other one, your fault.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like-
Well, and what's interesting in both of those cases, it seems to me, whether we're planning for it or whether we're catastrophizing over possibilities or not, there's this belief we tend to have, particularly in the culture we live in, that if you make your planning perfect, you will get the outcome you're looking for.
Mhm.
We may not say that to ourselves,
Right.
but then we say, okay, if in order to mitigate all these or reduce the possibility of things not going the way I plan, let me plan it to death.
Yeah.
Let me plan every single thing so that we leave nothing to chance. Right.
But even that you can't,
But you can't.
because there's so many other variables that have no control
Right.
in your hands.
Right.
Like, what are other people going to do? What decisions are they going to make that's going to domino into your life?
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, what if a mechanic didn't do something right in the airplane and now they have to do maintenance on the airplane? That has nothing to do with you. You could have planned everything to a T.
Yep.
Now the plane doesn't work.
That's right. Well, and and we talk this show, when we talk about building a better life, we're talking about really developing resilience
Mhm.
and recognizing that life happens on life's terms. And
It does.
whatever our plans are, it very rarely works out that way, perfect planning or not. But here's the thing about resilience, right? If it was about planning and doing it really well and being able to predict that everything was going to work out, it wouldn't be resilient.
Mm-mm.
It would just be good planning,
Yeah.
right?
We'd still be softies.
Right. Resilience is about, to what degree are we responding or reacting to what happens when things don't go to plan?
Mhm.
Because when things go to plan, we don't have anything to react or respond to, except
Right.
maybe just like, hey, my plans worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And then chances are we start worrying about the next thing, right? Start planning the next thing.
Right.
But resilience is about how we respond to these things. And what I found interesting about, the way you answer those questions was you found ways to respond after your initial reaction that turned it around within an hour. That's
Yeah,
pretty
it's great.
good,
I
Ashley,
mean,
getting stabbed in the eye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think it's twofold. One, I would say like I said, the pain was enough that I'm like, I don't have time to worry about anything else. Like, this is
Mhm.
so fully encompassing. But also I did have enough fun in the front end, I could say. Like,
That's
I
good.
did get to experience a whole day and a half-ish of the parks. It's not like it happened within 2 hours of me getting there.
That's true.
So I did already have some fun. That might have helped me a little bit, but I'll still take credit for flipping it 1 hour.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm not sure how many of us could do that. All right. Well, when we get back from our second break, not only will Ashley and I continue with this conversation and give you some things to think about, maybe to work on and try out yourself when things don't go to plan, but we'll also have our weekly segment. This week it is the 2 minutes of triumph. So we will be right back after these messages. See you in a minute.
Don't ask me to talk.
There's a lot of talk out there. Political talk, sports talk, girl talk, trash talk, and so on. But there's only one, Don't Ask Me to Talk, helmed by conversational off-roaders and podcast pals Eric Ryder and Stacey Heller. They follow every tangent they encounter, from cultural blind spots to their infamous weekly Wheelo topics. Listen wherever you listen to your fave podcasts. Subscribe and share too. Or tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. or Tuesday at 4 p.m. on KKNW.
How's business?
Good. Are you up to speed with the new beneficial ownership reporting requirements?
Sort of. What's it about?
It's a new initiative to help fight crimes like money laundering, fraud, and drug trafficking. A lot of small businesses like ours just have to report some basic info to the federal government about the real people behind them.
Reporting your company's beneficial ownership information is quick, secure, and free, and it helps protect U.S. national security. Learn more at fincen.gov/BOI.
Make us part of your daily routine. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
And we are talking about when things don't go to plan and how really our responses and our expectations really are what determine how we're going to respond to that. I mean, and what that's going to mean for us. And we suggested with a couple of things, some different ways of approaching these. Breathing techniques work, reframing the story in your head works, and kind of focusing on setting a goal that you can pursue, right? A hopeful goal for something. Because we can recognize the reality of something and still hope and act towards a better solution, right? That's easy to do. So, all right, Ashley, before we start talking about some things that we can do and some of the larger meaning of all this, let's do our weekly segment where we each take 2 minutes to talk about this week, something that was a triumph in this week to share with everybody, as opposed to a terror. You already talked about your terror, right?
It was enough.
All right, so let's go ahead and do that right now. Here we go. 2 minutes of triumph.
Yes.
All right. I know we both love that. Yes. It's like we wait for it. With
I
bated
just wait
breath.
for your reaction. Anyways, you're taking part of my 2 minutes.
Sorry, go.
It's fine. Okay, so this was unintentionally planned, but I'm actually leaving on a cruise. Bye, everyone. I leave in a couple of days. So I'm getting it. Unintentionally a do-over, but on a much grandiose scheme.
Right. You already had it planned.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, this one was booked before Disneyland. So this just ended up working out. But it's a week and a half.
Nice.
Going over to the Hawaiian Islands. I have to fly over there.
Okay.
Putz around on the islands for like a couple of days. I did say that.
You did say.
I hop on the cruise ship and we stop at a few islands is what I should have said. Thank you, JD.
You make old jokes about me all the time. And you bust out a really old word, putz around.
I'm just trying to,
That's funny. Anyway,
connect with the older folks.
That's exciting. So the triumph is, and how long are you gone?
It is an 8-night cruise.
Ooh, all around Hawaii.
Yep. And then it comes back and I dock up in Canada and then.
Oh man. So you come across the Pacific.
I do. So nice. I'm like, I have to pack 2 different types of clothing in my suitcase.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's such a tough thing.
It is.
I feel
Anyways, I'm really excited. That's my triumph. I'm going on this trip and it's going to be part of it. Obviously, once we get away from the islands, it's decompress, no cell phones, no internet,
it's gonna be
nothing. Great. And I just really get to relax and enjoy some
That's going to be great. I'm excited for you. It's well earned, overdue.
I hope you survive without me.
I will. In fact, I know that I'm going to survive without you because, in case you're wondering, there still will be episodes of Staying Power while Ashley's on her cruise, and they are great. And you know why we know they're great? Because we've already recorded them. And we're going to talk a little bit about that towards the end of the show. We have, for the next 2 episodes, we have a 2-part episode coming up with a very special guest that we're excited to introduce a lot of you to. While there are a lot of people around the world outside of the United States who know who this person is and would know her by sight. So we're going to introduce her at the end. All right. My 2 minutes of triumph.
Yeah.
If you're watching on the stream, you might notice something new. Ashley and I'm going to wave it around by the mic, right? So
sound effects.
We have some significant show notes today. And the reason why we did this is Ashley and I do have very connected conversations. And so it flows really easily. And we do come in with a plan of what we're going to talk about. But for whatever reason, we just decided that to kind of keep moving things along, we would put a little bit more down on paper. And so I put together some show notes.
And you did a really great job.
Thank you. And they turned out really well, I think. I've learned that I can reorganize them a little bit for the flow of the show.
And it's so on brand. It's 6 pages long.
Of course. So not only am I long-winded, but that extends over to my typing, I suppose. Right. So here we go. All right. Yes.
Good job on those shows.
Thank you. I'm excited about it because it does so many times we come out of these episodes, everybody, where we go, oh, we forgot to mention that one thing, or we come up with this really good point in our head that we aren't able to get to.
Yeah.
This helps prevent that because
JD got all his points out on paper.
For the most part, I did. Okay. All right. So That's our 2 minutes of triumph. All
It's
right.
good.
All right, here we go. Okay, so Ashley, from this conversation, let's,
Mhm.
we've talked about, we all have this in common, right? We don't like it when plans don't go according to plan, right? Particularly, we're talking the negative in the case of your experience. And we can be really nervous about that and do a lot of work trying to prevent that through over planning or thinking we have to have everything perfect or blaming ourselves when something goes wrong, right? The dreaded shoulds, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Talked all about that. We
Mhm.
also talked about a couple of techniques that we can all try in the moment, right? And work on and practice to mitigate those things, to recognize those stories, reframe things a little bit more, breathe, does a whole lot for ourselves. So let's kind of talk about the larger lessons. A lot of these we talk about with clients,
Yes.
right, in these situations. So let's go with some of these takeaways. So what are some good takeaways that we can give people today coming out of this?
This is one that I try to share often with people and clients and such, but I had to, share it with myself. It was really great practice in the midst of my situation. But just to remember that calm isn't the absence of chaos.
Mm.
It's what you do and how you show up in it
Oh.
that can really change the trajectory of what you're going through.
Mm. That's a really good one.
Thanks.
Chaos within the calm. Yes, of
It's
course.
like calming the chaos,
Calming the
right? 'Cause,
chaos.
like,
Yeah.
you're in a chaotic situation, it's really stressful, you're anxious, or something didn't go according to plan, and so on and so forth. And I do remember that was something breathing and whatnot, I tried to remain calm and present
Hmm.
so I could actually get through this. And I think that was so much better and self-serving for me as opposed to, like we said earlier, making up stories and getting all upset and getting
Hmm.
my emotions rising. And instead of like helping my body, because at the time, in this specific example, my body was my ally.
Oh, right.
My body was what I really needed to count on. I needed my brain to shut down a little bit and calm down,
Mhm.
but I really needed to help support myself and getting myself into a better spot. And so
Mhm.
remaining calm and reminding myself that, like, even in chaos, you can be calm.
I love that. I get the image of like, I was amazed that when birds land, when there's storms going on, the
Mhm.
birds just disappear, right?
Mhm.
They go to their nests, they hole up, they hold on, they make it through, and then they're back.
Mhm.
And it's amazing. They're out in the elements for the most part,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But they've clearly built good nests and they found good locations for themselves to ride that out.
Mhm.
There's a lesson in that, it seems to me. I like that a lot.
What
You had
about you?
you mentioned it ties to what you just said, and that is, we can forget that our nervous system is trainable.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
don't have to react to everything. We don't have to just accept that reaction as the only one we're gonna have, and then try and think our way out of it with a bunch of stories. We can actually train it to respond more effectively. That's one of the things about the practice of doing that breathing,
Mhm.
right? And cognitive reassignment and, hope theory. Those things retrain ourselves, right? The
Mhm.
breathing matters so much because it's not this woo-woo thing. When we breathe in oxygen, our body takes it in, sends out that oxygen to all the elements of our cells. And that when they're filled with oxygen, it reduces the restriction on the blood vessels, which
Mhm.
then slows down the heart because the heart doesn't have to keep working so hard. Because when we stress ourselves out, we go to shallow breathing,
Yep.
everything tightens up in the body, the heart has to work faster, and
Mhm.
that triggers more and more of that nervous fight
Right.
or flight response, right?
Yep.
All that stuff works together. So if you breathe, you can actually, and don't force yourself to take a deep breath, but steadily allow your breathing to lengthen
Mhm.
those longer exhalations. It actually calms the body down and calms the mind down, right? So it's trainable.
Yeah.
We aren't at the mercy of those things,
That's
right?
well, I mean, you think like if you really stop and think about it, there's really grand examples of
Mhm.
this, like firefighters, police officers, paramedics,
Mhm.
military, people who, in order to help others, have to put themselves in environments that are
Yep.
highly stressful,
Yep.
that so much is going on, but they have to remain calm. They have
Mhm.
to keep a clear, present mind because they need to handle a situation, and most oftentimes, they have to help somebody else who
Mhm.
is under distress or not even conscious or whatever the situation. So, it's very true that you can actually reprogram yourself.
Well, and one of the key trainings, if you ask any first responder, one of the key trainings they go through and they practice all the time is breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Box breathing, 4-7-8 breathing, whatever works for them, right? It's a consistent thing they have to do because, of course, they are in a position of having to react and respond literally within moments.
Yeah.
And we don't call them first reactors. We call them first responders.
Oh,
right?
nailed that
Right?
one home.
Right. And
Underline
that's
and
part
bold.
of it. And it's not just about the training that they know what to do medically or they know what to do technically. They know what to do intellectually and somatically. That was the word I was looking for earlier. In their bodies, somatically. Okay, so it's trainable, starting with the breath. What else you got?
You know, that there is something about your stories. They're powerful. They are.
The stories we tell ourselves in
Yes.
emotional states, right?
And even in my example, you can use them in a good way to empower yourself. Like you said, like the hope theory. Now, there are times where it's like, okay, it's obvious, like you can't hope your way out of a situation, right?
Sure.
But I do really think that they can be used in a good way as a tool, and it's something you can have in your little tool arsenal, along with breathing techniques and keeping yourself calm and centered, is to know that you can utilize that and rewrite and reframe a situation and look at it an entirely different way.
Yep.
And it may actually seem like something you can handle when you do something like that.
Right. And, when we talk about the stories that tend to be the catastrophe version, right? That's the one we go to. If we can recognize that that's not happening in the moment, that let's just be charitable and say that's a possibility. It's as much a reality as the possibility that something positive is going to happen.
Yeah.
So if both are not in the reality of the moment, both are possible, right? And if both are possible, it seems that we can choose to hope for, focus on, pursue the one that's more positive as opposed to obsess, worry, react to the negative one, right? That, of course, we're so fearful is going to be the one that actually happens,
Well,
right?
yes.
So we're able to do that. So you kind of got to choose your stories wisely, with those
Pick your
things.
adventure.
Right. For those. And then, one that I think that comes out for me in this is plans fail, but we don't have to take them personally.
It's true.
Right? We don't have to take it personally. It's not necessarily our personal responsibility that something went wrong. If it is, it is. It happens. If it's something else that happened, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be fate. That's a story. It doesn't have to be punishment. That's a story. It doesn't even have to be bad luck. That's just a story.
Yep.
It's just what happened. Right? And we have some choice in the degree to which we turn that into something that is a statement about ourselves. Maybe not by other people about us, but to ourselves. And the statements we tell ourselves are far and away either the most constructive we can give or the most destructive we can give. So plans fail. You don't have to take it personally. You got any more? Got any more?
I mean, if listeners and viewers and everybody else that we love having here with us on our show don't know, I love to laugh and I laugh often, and I try to take
not know.
Right. They try to take I try to take as many opportunities as I can to laugh, because laughing is also good medicine for your body and your mind and you.
It is.
But I have found, even in like really grim circumstances, and maybe this might be like a natural part of me that always tends to lean towards the good and the positive and the upside of things, but there are still moments and opportunities of positivity, happiness, and laughter that can happen. Even in the midst of a situation, even in the midst of, like, when I went through what I did in Disneyland, I still went out and got my churros eventually, because I'm like, this is going to be a positive. And there were still things that happened that I was still able to eventually open my eyeballs and laugh and have a good time with. It's not the end of the world.
Right. So you're allowed to laugh.
You're allowed to laugh. And don't let other people be like, are you feeling better already? You seem like you're over it. Because my emotions were kind of doing this for the next few days, but I was laughing in there. So
I bet. I like that. And then my last one in that is that all indicates that, really, if you think about it, hope is a strategy, right? And framing things the way you're framing it, that's a strategy. You can choose that. It's not pie in the sky. It's not denying reality, right? It's not any of those things. It actually can be based in reality. And if you want to know a way that you can base hope in reality, even if it's not something that is tangible yet, is think about all the things in your life that have gone well. And think of all the blessings that you do have. And if you really want to connect to hope, think of the things you already have that work well for you, that already bless you, that already give you something. And remember the times perhaps where you were hoping that that would be the case in those areas.
Right?
Boom. How about that?
Mic drop.
All right. Okay. Ashley, thanks for that. Thanks for sharing your story.
You're
Appreciate that.
welcome.
And thanks to all of you for joining us for this episode of Staying Power. Again, next week, we're going to start a 2-part series. Actually, it's a 2-part episode while Ashley is gone. We recorded already. Our guest is Dina Mehta, and Dina is one of the most important women in all of Indian history from the country of India for a lot of reasons. She would not describe herself that way, but I think objectively that is true. When you listen to what she has done, what she was among many of the firsts in Indian history for women, she came into the studio. We had such a good conversation for the first hour. We had to continue it for a second hour. And so for the next 2 weeks, you're going to get treated to an interview with her and her unique experience and her unique and very, very constructive and powerful and hopeful view on life and the human condition. So we're excited to bring her to you the next couple weeks. So all of you, wish Ashley a wonderful cruise.
Thanks.
How are we going to do that? Oh, there's the sound. That's the sound of the ship leaving.
That's not
on that note, we're going to be going. All right. See you all next week. Until then, I'm JD.
I'm Ashley.
And we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.